Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Friday's afternoon tea. And we have, I guess, lots to discuss. And I am actually still waiting, guys, and hoping, fingers crossed, that we may get a really big reveal, let's say, maybe sometime this afternoon. And so let's go ahead and start talking. Well, I'll start talking about, but a couple of things we're going to talk about is Meghan Markle's alleged Invictus Games demands. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on that. I don't think I've seen too many people question about that, but I did want to definitely share my thoughts. And then we also have, of course, Catherine talking about how the Waleses play rugby at home as she hosted the Lionesses. We also have the sort of crazy story that even hit the Daily Mail today. I thought, oh my gosh, I just ignored it because I thought it was so dumb. But I'm like, it's like gaining traction. And that is to satiate the potential US takeover of Greenland, there should be an arranged marriage between Princess Isabella and Baron Trump. So that's weird. That's really, really weird. And then we have, obviously, as well, I actually have a list here of a couple things. We have Harry and Meghan's not at the big post Golden Globes Netflix party, which I found rather interesting because obviously they have been very close to the streaming giant. We also have the new YouGov popularity poll, which shows Meghan at her lowest numbers ever. So why is she trying to make it back to the UK? I don't know. Nobody wants her there. Literally 2/3 of the country could care less. So that is a big question. And what I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe pops up, guys, for sort of this afternoon, you could say, because it should be here or maybe it'll arrive on Monday. But I'm kind of hoping because the West Coast is 3 hours behind that we maybe get it kind of soon, which is the Netflix What We Watched for the Last Half of 2026. Or sorry, 2025. So that should actually be coming here very, very soon. And that'll give us, again, another good metric of how well Meghan Markle performed, which I'm going to guess is really, really bad. So I just definitely am keeping an eye on that. I had that up. We also have, let's say, Netflix also has like a new studio it's done and these sorts of things. So Harry and Meghan really feel, at least in my opinion, very, very out of the loop of where Hollywood is going. I don't think anybody's really calling them, but again, we'll get into all of it. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in this Friday afternoon. And we do have a couple pieces here real quick. Carol gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Carol. That is awesome. And then Deborah said, become a YouTube member as well. Thank you so much, Deborah. Congratulations. And Carol said, Catherine knocked it out of the park with Red at Windsor Castle reception. Yes, she did. And thank you so much for the super chat. We will definitely go over it. And then we have Tina as well, who's been a member for 10 months, saying, almost a year as a member. Glad I found you. Why, thank you so much, Tina. So glad you found your way here as well. It is an awesome little channel in a little corner of the world. So anyways, guys, very, very crazy, of course. And so we will begin with Meghan Markle's alleged Invictus Games demands. And I do have quite a bit of thoughts about this. So we'll go ahead and go into it. Hold on. I may need a drink here. Sorry, all of a sudden my throat got very, very dry. And I was like, oh, okay. And so here we go. This is the Radar Online. Although this originally came from Rob Shooter, who I haven't paid for, on Substack. And have you guys noticed that Substack is like exploding? Like Jane Foster, Dolly Parton, like everybody's on Substack. I'm also on Substack. I've been there for a while and I just can't quite figure out like when to always get the time to write. So anyways, I just found that to be very interesting. So if you guys are curious. So we do have here, Meghan is considering accompanying Harry to the 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham, and her list of demands include having 4 floors of a hotel set aside for her, as well as security far beyond what most heads of state require. So this is from Rob Shooter. It says she wants 4 floors of the Hyatt completely shut down just for her, extra security outside, staff aren't allowed to look at her, she's in total control, and anyone who has any interaction with her has to call her Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, no exceptions. And so she continues to think very highly of herself, 24/7 drivers, a fleet of luxury cars, and a police escort from the hotel from the airport to the hotel. This isn't just protection. She's asking for a fortress, bulletproof glass at the games, armed security wherever she goes. She wants to have her own chef, glam team, assistant, full hair, makeup, yada, 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 4 separate rooms for her PR staff alone. I don't think she has enough PR staff to really fill 4 rooms, by the way. Nothing will be left to chance. All right. And obviously, we're still waiting for the security arrangements with Ravik. But guys, here are my thoughts. And I do have to say, I feel this generally for any story where Rob Shooter is the supposed source. Now, this is not to say, guys, that necessarily all sources are bad and all sources are good, because sometimes people have good sources, bad sources, whatever. But I honestly think this story is hogwash. I think it's complete and utter hogwash. I have found that a lot of the stuff I hear from Rob Shooter, because I usually only hear about his stuff from Dan Wooten when I'm on his show, most of it does not sound accurate to me. Most of it's missing, like especially anything related to Royals. No, I don't think any of it's accurate. And while she does have a big head, we know this. We know she'll have demands if she attends. We know she always does. That's not to say that like elements of the overall story are not true, but I don't think any of it has any credence or bearance really on the situation. And the reason I think that is number one, this is like a year away. But number two, it's like the problem with Meghan and her presence within the media is that you can almost spin anything as negative. You can basically spin anything as negative. If it's a negative story about Meghan Markle, it will sell. And that's the unfortunate reality of Meghan Markle's life right now, is that nobody wants to hear positive things about her. They only want to hear the negative. And while a lot of the negative, of course, is true, not saying it's not, I just don't feel like this has a lot of, let's say, status or like evidence or anything to that effect. Of course, Meghan's team has dismissed it, and I would imagine they would do so because, again, I don't really think this is true. And so it's one of those things where that's why it's so important to really not buy into every single media story, because not every story is accurate. Even the mainstream publications, like I went and did a deep dive and completely, and in my opinion, completely debunked the Times reporting on Meghan Markle making $36 million with ads ever. It doesn't make any sense. The math doesn't math here. Again, we're equating, there's 3 jars in boxes, and somehow she sold the amount, like 800,000 boxes, even though she had apparently only ordered 1 million jars, which means she has no jars left. Like, the math doesn't math. Again, I have a whole video on it. If you haven't watched it, you should. I also have a whole Substack on it. So Royal News Network Substack, I am there. I do a deep dive, like explaining all of this. But when it comes to looking at sources, there's so much, let's say, sensationalism, and some of it is true, but some of it is false. And to me, this falls into the false category. And of course, there's going to be, I'm sure, demands, of course, and stipulations that Meghan wants to have, but she doesn't even have any guarantee at this point that she's going. And even if, let's say, she's like that nervous about her security, if she's that nervous about her security, why even go? She doesn't care about the Invictus Games. Again, we have a whole video, or not a whole video, but a quote from Matt Wilkinson, and I found it. It's on True Royalty. It's from a couple months ago. And he's like, he says, Meghan Markle was a bad royal. She's bad at the Invictus Games. She's not good at interacting with people or children or anything. She's bad at it. So I don't think there is a part of Meghan that really enjoys the Invictus Games by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think she likes it. I don't think she likes it at all. I think she goes for the potential of publicity, and that's pretty much it. That's the only reason she attends. And I'm sure Harry wants her to go because, again, Invictus is basically like, it's sort of interesting. I've listened to Maureen Callahan, and I do think this is true, that, and this happens with certain actors and actresses and stuff like that, is that Sarah Jessica Parker has become Carrie Bradshaw in her own mind. Carrie Bradshaw is SJP. SJP is Carrie Bradshaw. And so if you, let's say, don't like Carrie Bradshaw, like Sarah Jessica Parker would take it super personally because she doesn't really have that much separation between herself and the part she's playing. So in my mind, Harry has a little bit of that relationship with Invictus, is that it's become a huge core aspect of his identity to such an extent that he can no longer see reality when it comes to the games. I'm sorry, the games are a sweet idea, but they're a massive waste of time and resources and money. They just are. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the veterans, but I don't think a dime of any taxpayer money anywhere should be expended on these games. It's just sort of a glorified talent show. That's what it is. And the only right way they can get butts in seats, the only way they can quote unquote make money, although I'm sure they lose it paying for the people to perform, is for the concerts at the opening and closing ceremony. And because of those two things, that's how they attempt to get people in, is by trying to sell tickets to those and getting big named people attached. But by getting big name people attached, inevitably you undermine your own bottom line, I'm sure. I don't think those games make anybody any money, to be honest. I think they are money pits. And I've been to the games and I think they're lovely for the people who attend, but they are not critical to anything. But it's a super huge part of Harry's ego. He wants to go. He wants Meghan to go. I'm sure she hates every second of it, except for when she can smile and find the camera. That's the only reason she goes. And it's the only reason any in the media goes, to be quite honest, is to take pictures of Harry and Meghan, and that's it. There's no media coverage of these games pretty much beyond Harry and Meghan. And again, that is a fault of the games. That is not a fault of the veterans and those who are participating. That is a fault in the Invictus games that thinks it can't survive without Harry and Meghan, which is probably right. Which is why they shove her to the forefront in some ways, is because she gets eyeballs on the games and they don't have enough confidence in their own brand to think it can stand without Harry and Meghan. Now, they might be accurate in thinking that for sure, but at this point, we don't know if that's, let's say, entirely true. And there should be like some way, I think, to make the games successful and functional, and without Harry and Meghan being attached. Like pretty much any organization, if it's too attached to the identity of the founder, of the current CEO or what have you, most of them fall apart if that person leaves. And so I think, or at least see severe diminishment in footprint, in impact, or what have you. So I've actually worked in an organization rather like that, like the main person left. And yeah, it still sticks around, but definitely not as successfully as it once did. So again, I don't think there's really any credence to this story so far. I don't even like, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me at this point. And if there, what's the nicest, what I'm curious is, what's the nicest hotel? What's a nice hotel in? I mean, there's some place called the Grand Hotel in Birmingham. Yeah, the Grand Hotel and the Hyatt Regency are both considered the best, so that is, plausible as a potential hotel option. That, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, I just did a quick Google search, and yeah, we'll see how the games go. I mean, we'll see if even Harry and Meghan are still married by the time the games go off. I don't know, but I just think that games overall are a massive waste of time and resources and money and effort and all these sorts of things. But again, the big question is, do I think those allegations are correct? Not really. And it's because, again, it's my personal opinion, but most of what I've heard from Rob Shooter just doesn't make a ton of sense to me generally. So I am just less interested in actually taking anything he says seriously. That's just my personal opinion. Again, those are like the stories I've heard from Dan. I'm like, maybe, especially like when it comes to the Royals, I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Maybe I'm arrogant. I don't know. But it's like, I've watched the Royals enough, watched Royal coverage enough to be pretty sure of either what I'm seeing, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Like, I'm pretty good at picking up patterns, and I just don't see a lot of credence to, not to say that some of his other reporting isn't good, because I'm sure it is, but in the case of the Royals, and I think Harry and Meghan in this instance, I just don't put a lot of bearing on his thoughts here. that again, just my opinion. So, guys, I do believe, of course, that Meghan wants people to call her ma'am, wants to call her her royal highness. Of course, she does. Do I think she wants a lot of an entourage and these sorts of things? Of course. Now, it could be that some of that excessiveness that we're seeing is like a genuine concern for her quote unquote safety. It could actually be Harry's demands in some ways going, but I need to protect Meghan so bad. Again, I think Meghan is sort of aware of the grift here, which is that she's not unpopular because like there's an actual real threat. I think Harry thinks there is. I think Meghan's aware that's total hogwash and she's just like kind of nudging him to get him to like obsess about it, want to save her and these sorts of things. There's not a great risk to Meghan Markle. I'm sorry. She may think they're Harry. I should say Harry because I think Harry really does think there's some sort of grand risk to Meghan Markle. I just don't think there is. And that level of security is not even necessary for Catherine and William because when we saw actually Catherine arrive at Windsor Castle, there's a video of her getting into the car and departing, and she arrives by herself in her car, and somebody meets her and puts, has an umbrella for her, and she walks in by herself. Like, when it comes to security risk overall, it's always going to be the monarch in the air. Beyond that, it's not really that many people. So I think it's definitely a case of hubris, but I honestly don't think the reporting is really going to be all that accurate. So that is my thoughts there in case people were wondering. And I did see this comment. I wanted to make sure I mentioned it really quick here because Renee Marie Berger Roca said, Brittany, I went to the Fabergé jewelry exhibition at the Science Museum in Houston. Thought of you, saw two beautiful tiaras, the Josephine, and I don't know if I got the other one. Oh, the Josephine and the Aquamarine by Holstrom. Yes, I am aware of that exhibition. I do want to go at some point because it's actually a permanent one, or at least semi-permanent. And my thought is that I like really want to see like as many tiaras as possible, and those ones are definitely on my list. And so I'm looking forward to seeing them one day. So we do have some super chats that came in too. Dizfan, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, but Brittany, the story and situation with Ravik with Harry's demands all adds up. We know how demanding Meghan can be. We do, but honestly, I question the source a lot. I don't see a lot of like most of the stories that come from Rob Shooter when it comes to royals and Harry and Meghan are not very good. I'm sorry, they're not. So I just question it severely. I don't believe it. And do we know she's demanding? Yes. I mean, and is it a little bit early for some of this? Yeah. And obviously they do a lot of assessments ahead of times and these sorts of things, but Ravik Security wouldn't even offer that. Like they wouldn't even take away 4 floors for Catherine and William, for Pete's sakes. There's no way they're going to, like, the government aspect of this is going to do it for Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan will have to buy out all those rooms if they want them. Now, they're welcome to go that crazy if they want to, but that's not really how it works. But I just don't, honestly, most of the reporting has not been very good from Rod Shooter when it comes to the royals. Sorry to say. And again, negative stories about Meghan Markle sell. So people can spin anything negative and it works. It sells. Of course, when it's based in an element of truth, which I'm sure Rob's story is, of course, it's going to even get greater traction because there is an element of truth there, of course. But is it 100% true? I really just don't think so. All right. Disfan also asked as well, all they want is for either Charles, Camilla, Catherine, or William to show up for a photo op, yet Charles again is backed into a corner. Yes, they do want the photo op of the real royals. I think, again, there's a strategy to try to re-cement themselves as a real royal or as part of the royal machine. And it does put King Charles in a difficult spot because when it comes to Charles is in a, he's head of the armed forces. So it doesn't make him look, I would argue, particularly good to avoid the Invictus games. Yet at the same time, we all understand why he's not there. And of course, there's just a small cadre of UK soldiers, but it'd be really easy for Harry's team to spin it negatively if Charles doesn't attend. Now, the best probably person to attend is probably to send Anne. Anne's no nonsense. Anne would be very judicial and discreet and just do her job and go home. beyond that, I just don't think there's anybody else to send. So that would be my suggestion if they send anybody, is to send Anne. Now, to be fair as well, when it comes to the Netherlands, the King of the Netherlands did not attend really until like the last day, the final day, and he only attended an event or two. So it was Princess Margaret, who is the aunt to the current king. So she is the sister of the former queen. She attended the opening ceremonies, and that was about it. I don't even know if we got a picture of her and Harry together or not, or her, Harry and Meghan. So because of that, like there's not even a precedence for other royals where it's hosted in their country to really make much of to make an attendance at all. It was a little bit of shock for Prince Joachim and his wife Marie to attend last year at the Vancouver Games, but there was a winter element to them. And he also works out of Washington, D.C. as a defense attaché. So it like kind of made sense. But also I was like, why expend the energy and effort? Like, really? Again, it's just, I just feel like it's a glorified talent show. Yeah, I know that's probably not right, but that's what I feel like it is. It's just not something where at this point a lot of money and effort and energy should be expended into it. This should be a small group that does it every like couple of years, and it should just be done like maybe majorly every 4 years, but mostly it should be done in the country, these sorts of things. Like trying to make it into like the Paralympics for veterans, even though there is the Paralympics and the actual Olympics, like I just don't even get it. What is the point of that? But it's definitely Harry's ego. All right, Carol, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Said Invictus Games needs to sever themselves from Harry and Meghan and reattach themselves to the RF Ministry of Defense, Royal Legion, and make it about the veterans. So again, this is a total misnomer about the Invictus Games, but there's no reason a royal has to be attached to the Invictus Games at all. Like there's no reason that any particular defense department has to be attached to them. They don't. There's no reason at all to have the RF involved. Really, there's not. Because of Harry's involvement, people think there needs to be more royal family involvement. There just really doesn't. This should be, if it's wanting to be what it actually wants to be, which is an international like competition between various countries, it should have no particular country like attached in some ways. It doesn't need a royal attached. It just maybe needs like a brand spokesperson, but really, it just needs to stand on its own 2 feet and not rely on others. If it's just going to be the Ministry of Defense and Royal Legion, then just have it in the UK and say screw it to everything else. Just have the UK people do it. Like if it's in country, yeah, maybe have the royal family involved, maybe the Legion or whatever. But beyond that, if this is supposed to be what it is aiming to be, which is an international bilateral or trilateral, quadrilateral or whatever competition, there's no like you're only saying that there needs to be the RF involved because of Harry. Really, there doesn't need to be. Mike Tyndall doesn't have to be involved. Zara, Anne, none of them have to be involved in this. Nobody does. And I don't even think it's necessary if it was operating the way it's supposed to, which is to just be there for the veterans. It's not about a particular country. If it's going to make it about a particular country, like why not have the US take over and have it be the Defense Department and like Baron Trump or something as a head? Like, there's no reason. Again, I just think the game should fold. They just don't really serve much of a purpose. And they may help the individual people, but I'm sure they can create smaller groups within the various countries that could do the exact same thing. So we do have Dizfan as well. Thank you so much for the super chat saying, this will define King Charles's reign and the future of the monarchy if he's given into the demand of these grifters. So it's not just the demand of the grifters, but when it comes to sort of the royals, it's really about how do you like manage the rogue royals? Because when it comes to the Invictus Games, yeah, Charles is in a tough place. He's head of the armed forces. It looks weird if he doesn't attend. It honestly does. But we understand why he doesn't. But it also does look weird. It can also play weird. All these sorts of things are wrapped up into one. So that's just a really like interesting thing to kind of put together. But we shall see what the future holds. Like And he's not necessarily, again, Charles is stuck in a hard place here. People on social media, I find, tend to have, let's say, a very like whiplash, kind of very one-sided perspective. And you are dealing with family elements here and a father who wants to see his son and his grandchildren. And he just can't, nor would I suggest anyone just cut somebody off. But there has to be a way to figure out, this is again what I've always stated, how to have the obviously the personal side of things, but at the same side, the dynastic side of things. Yes, there's a couple of aspects where they overlap, but mostly these should be treated as two separate things. There are the personal relationships, dynamics, these sorts of things, and the dynastic ones. And so Charles has to, I think, take a step back and focus more, you could say, on what it means to have a personal relationship with Harry versus a dynastic one. How does that impact things? How do you move about it? How do you like make it clear to Harry that he is always a member of the family, but for dynastic reasons, we have to make certain decisions? Because again, Harry and Meghan are never going to do the right thing or the thing that the monarchy wants them to do. That's just, they're never going to give them what they want, really. So this is like, again, that's tough. Like us, as you could say, sort of armchair commentators and these sorts of things, which of course I'm one of them. And like, but I try to acknowledge that this is not easy stuff to do. It has to be done. You have to make the decision, but it's not easy. Don't fault King Charles for kind of trying, like, and being like nervous and trying to figure this out. And yeah, he's failing massively. I will get like 100% agree, but these are not easy things. They're just not easy things at all. And so that's one of the things that's really, I think, important to remember is that, yes, us on the internet, we can say all we want. Oh, Charles should just throw away his relationship with Harry and Meghan. But in the reality, in the face of it, it's not that easy. So we'll all see how it plays out. Sir Squirrelot says, Brittany, did you see the event with the two queens? Mary and Marguerite, love how happy and comfortable they seem together. Yes. And maybe we'll show that video because there's actually a great video on X. And I love it for looking at how royals, like how royal ladies, oh, I mean, since we're talking about it, might as well, right? So let's go here because I posted about it because it was so incredibly, I thought, important to see like how royals can respect each other, but at the same time, like, because one of the things about Meghan, and this again is something that might even deserve a whole video, is Meghan just never respected the institution or gave it the time of day. And I love this video because this is very respectful. So the ladies, former queen right here, Mary's coming up behind her, enter an event to commemorate the reopening of a theater over there in Christianborg Palace. So obviously, Queen Marguerite reigned for over 50 years. Mary, it shows deference because she's the Queen Emeritus. She has only been queen about 2 years now. And Mary's like, oh, okay, I'll go. And this is also known as Bull as well, because Queen Marguerite is very, very involved in the theater scene. She's like highly involved in it. So this is her like something that she's really, really focused on. So, and especially even post royal life, like she's designed outfits for, plays and ballets and these sorts of things. Very, very creative woman, Marguerite is. But this is how you do it, how you show respect. And so we'll turn the sound off. I love actually Mary's dress here too. I really like the dress. And so it's just a very simple thing that the ladies are doing, which is like Mary should go first because she's queen consort right now, the reigning king, but they have a mutual respect for each other and that comes across. And that's how you do it. That is how you do it. So that's like, it's just so important because Meghan, one of the things like you just notice is that Meghan just did not care. She wanted to like, Grammy Buck here says Meghan acts like she wants to be served instead of like the real royals do being servants. Yeah. I mean, they're not quite servants, but royals are there to serve, not be served. Yes, being served is part of their world experience as well. But Like, they're there to serve, they're there to be respectful, they're there to do a job. And one of the things about royalty, which again, I feel like Meghan really ramrodded and just did not seem to understand, and this is just about just generally, is that it's not all about her. And when it comes to, oh gosh, I lost some of my train of thought there because I got distracted by the chat. Oh no. But Meghan really did not care enough to attempt to even understand why they were doing X, Y, and Z. And when you go into a situation like, working or living or marrying into a royal family, respect is a two-way street. That's actually the point I was getting to. Respect is a two-way street. So Meghan wanted people to show her respect, but she never gave respect in return. She's mocking bowing with that bowing to the queen on Netflix. She's mocking them. Like, she's trying to call out, yeah, I'm cutesy. It's like, honey, you're 40 freaking years old. It's not cute. You're mocking them. And so when she does something like that, it shows you how much of a lack of disrespect she had. And then complaining, oh, it was so hard. I had to learn the words to the national anthem and nobody told me. Well, it's like, well, they were respecting you because they thought you were an intelligent human being who could do something like Google. Apparently, that Northwestern degree people like to, push like so much. It's like, oh, she went to Northwestern. Oh, the woman who couldn't Google the national anthem to the UK, who was apparently too dumb to do that, complained about it. She wasn't too dumb. She just didn't care. It was a lack of respect. I think anybody who's marrying into a royal family, yeah, there will be things you don't like about it. There will be things that you think are archaic, are dumb, don't work, like what have you. Like, nobody is saying that that's not the case, you could say. But I think it's really important as well is that if you want respect, you have to show it first. You have to demonstrate it. Even though Queen Mary is the queen consort, she's kind of the reigning queen of Denmark right now in terms of the fact that she is technically married to the king. She still was like, well, she was the woman I gave deference to years. And I still, she's probably still defaults to it in a lot of ways. And in that moment, Queen Margaret's like, no, you go. And it's a mutual respect there. Queen Margaretha as well is not demanding. It's like, well, I'm the queen emeritus. Even though I abdicated, I still get to go first. No. She respects the system too. And she understood that Queen Mary should probably go first. Again, these are such important things to understand of respect and these sorts of things and how all of it, works together. And you can't have one without the other. And Meghan wanted everybody to show her respect and deference and listen to all her ideas and these sorts of things. And she never gave any of it in return. Actually, you can see an interesting comparison to somebody like Omid Scobie, who kind of, I feel like, had a bit of the same. It's a very much of an arrogant perspective of thinking that just because you walked into something for 5 minutes that you should be able to change it to fit what you think is better. Because his whole thing was it's been a while since we've heard from him, but he would whine and complain because he thought that the regular Royal Rota weren't giving him enough respect. He's like, I have good ideas. I should be able to share my ideas. And I was like, well, maybe number one, your ideas weren't sharing. They were bad. And they were trying to tell you that by not listening to you. But two, you weren't showing them respect. And you weren't showing them, you didn't try to learn. You immediately walked in and tried to fix what you thought was broken. And when I come in and I'm at an event and I'm there as a photographer or whatever, I try to be as respectful as I can. I kind of wish I had brought at least a blazer with me to Denmark so I could kind of, judge up my look a bit because I was, you could say maybe a little casual at points. The outside event, it was fine because it was outdoors and it was cold, but inside it was I saw some other people dress up and I was a little bit afterwards, I was like, darn, I just dressed up in my jeans and anyways, all that to say though, is I come in there just watching and observing and trying to learn and trying not to go, I know everything. Look at me. I have probably a nicer camera than a lot of the guys there. And I know they get better pictures than me. I would love to tap him on the shoulder. So yeah, you use the camera. I don't want to see that, you could say, like uneducated about things. So I don't want to go, what settings are you using? Tell me so I can copy them. No, I don't do that. Although I do look at the top of their cameras sometimes and go, you're doing 3.5. I'm doing 2.4. Should I be doing 3.5? Maybe I should be doing 3.5. If you're a camera person, maybe you know. Anyways, but I come in there with the best I can with humility and just trying to be a little duckling and trying to just learn. And there may be a point where, Royal News Networks become so big or respected that like I do get a level of respect, but I want to earn it. And I don't think I'll earn it by being, let's say, arrogant and haughty and going, ooh, look at all what I have and stuff like that. That's just not how to get ahead. It's mostly like, gosh, please let me get at least one good picture. If I can get just one good picture of the hair, of the jewelry, of the tiaras, of the dress, like that's all I care about. And that's it. If you come in that way, people like will talk to you, we'll all learn together, and eventually, we'll get there. But you don't come in there and expect success by demanding it, or expect respect by demanding it. And I feel like Meghan demanded respect, whereas with Mary and Marguerite, I feel like we see, and we can watch it again here, a mutual respect. And that's all it takes. And that makes both of them feel good. Mutual respect, people. A wonderful, wonderful concept. And it's like one that's really important in the British royal system, I think. So we do have a couple super chats that came in. We have Philippa Hussein 7778 said, thanks for sharing the video. I'm not on Instagram. Yeah, no worries. That is on X. Although I will say Bill Bloddet, which is a Danish publication, you guys should have a better, I think, presence on like Instagram and X and these sorts of things, because they don't have a great presence. So they need to work on that, in my humble opinion. It's Teresa Holtum 1630 became a YouTube member. Why, thank you so much, Teresa. I really, really do appreciate it. And you also gave us super chat. Hello, all. Hope you are all okay. Well, thank you so much for the super chat there. I really, really did appreciate it. So amazing. Thank you. It helps make all this work, you can say. So guys, let's move over to the Princess of Wales here. And she wore, oh man, guys, I was going to do this and I didn't. I totally forgot. So I'm like, it's cold today. And I actually went to get my oil changed. And the place I went to, they're one of those places where you actually drive in and they do the work there and you have to like put your windows down. And my feet got so cold. And when my feet get cold, I mean, I was all over cold, but my feet especially were like icicles. And when my feet get cold, guys, I'm pretty miserable. Like I like having my feet warm. It's like, why have slippers and Uggs and these sorts of things? Because warm toesies are very, very important to me. So anyways, guys, but I do actually have, and I'm not sure if it's the same color red, but I do actually have that blazer. So like, hold on. I was there, guys. Sorry. So let's like do this for 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on right there. I will be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. So hold on. There we go. Hello. There we go. So I don't know if it's the same color, if I'm going to be quite honest, but I do actually have the asymmetrical Alexander McQueen red blazer. I do actually have this. I got it on sale. And yeah, I almost got trousers to match, but then didn't. But I don't think I could fit this on with the thickness of my sweater right now. But this is it. So it is a gorgeous red color. I do love it. Again, I'm not sure because I felt like we got two different colors and there's some like color differentials within, you could say Alexander McQueen, because it says Welsh red, yes. But when I bought I have like, basically it's kind of like, an ice pink mauve suit from Alexander McQueen, there were 2 different colors mentioned. I actually thought I was giving 2 different suits. I got the same suit. I got the asymmetrical blazer and the regular blazer. And I got 2 different styles of pants, but they were all the same color. And I think even on the tags, they reference different colors. So it all depends on what the company like selling them references them as. You would think it's the same. It's not. So mine's technically not Welsh red, but it could honestly be the Welsh red. That's all to say. It could be the Welsh red. But mine is called a lust red. Golly, this thing was super pricey originally. They're even more expensive now. Like these blazers are like so incredibly expensive. I know I didn't pay this much for it. I probably paid $400 to $500 for it, to be honest, maybe a little bit more. But this blazer originally retailed for $2,300. Is that not insane? So I actually have gotten a couple of cool things royal related that's been on sale right now. So guys, if you are, I may try to, let's say, people would be interested on the fashion channel. I could go over some of the royal items that are on sale right now because this is the time. Honestly, the prices have gotten so high on the Alexander McQueen blazers. Like the first couple I got were like really more like $300 to $400 or $500 range, but now even on sale, it's like $700, $800, $900 range. So they've gotten more and more expensive, and so like even on sale. So I don't know if I could find them, but when it comes to this time of year, this is a big sale time of year. So I've actually gotten the long blazer that Zara Phillips wore to Catherine's Carol concert, and I actually got the last pair, the very last pair of the Jennifer Chamondi, I think it is, shoes that Catherine has previously worn once or twice. And I got the final pair, and I want to say they were 60% off. So I got a pretty good deal. So there's a lot of stuff on sale right now. So if you guys are interested at all in like having like sharing all the things I can find for that are on sale that are like royal related, I can definitely do that because again, this is a good time of year to buy stuff. But I would never pay 2,300 items. Like Bobby says, 2,300 items for one item. No, thank you. I couldn't even do 500 for that. Wow, I couldn't walk through my friend's store. Someone had to pick me up off the floor. Sticker shock. Yeah, and like the first couple I got, it was when it was like before even the price jump when they were like 2,000 and I was still getting them like 75% off. Like they're even more expensive now. So I want to say they're $2,500. But the thing is like when you get a good suit, like, and you can find like stuff on sale and like the Real and those sorts of things. You can find the same thing for, I don't want to say cheap, but you can find something for much better. Oh gosh, guys, this is the dark red Alexander McQueen blazer. I just got to say right now, they've gotten so expensive because this thing, guys, is $2,700. $2,690. So that is like, what, $400 more expensive than the one I have on the back of my chair? That's crazy. That's crazy. It's absolutely insane how expensive that is. So this is the regular one. I don't really see them selling the asymmetrical one much anymore because I tried to look to see if they had any asymmetrical and they don't. So Catherine has this black suit. I actually think this light blue one is really pretty. But yeah. And $1,200 or $1,300 just for the pants, y'all. I've seen those as low as like $100, $200, $300. But yeah, the prices have gotten quite bad for the Alexander McQueen stuff. Just putting that out there. But let's get back over to Catherine's event here. It's always interesting which pictures they choose because like I feel like that's not the most flattering picture. But she says, I play rugby with Charlotte, but I don't want to be tackled by George. So she's hosting the Lionesses in Windsor Castle. And it goes down to say the Princess of Wales has revealed she played rugby with her daughter, but wouldn't want to be tackled by Prince George, her eldest child, as she meets the World Cup winning Red Roses England team at Windsor Castle reception on Thursday. The princess said children should not be pigeonholed into separate sports too early. She told the team that both Prince George, Prince Louis, 7, play rugby at school, whereas Charlotte joins in at home. Speaking about how schools often choose not to separate boys and girls for sport when they are younger, the princess said Charlotte is playing rugby, but at home with the family, so she isn't playing yet. At school, rugby is so accessible. Louis is playing touch rugby, and it's such a great game. Actually, they shouldn't necessarily be pigeonholed, boys and girls in particular sports, too early. Obviously, as they get physically stronger, George, now if we play at home, I don't want to get tackled. But up to a certain age, I think it's great. And so I like that acknowledgement that, yeah, as George gets older, some of that becomes more and more like, yeah, kind of a bit more challenging. But I thought that was like a fun little anecdote to share that they play rugby at home. And they are a very sporty family. And I think that's so important because people, again, especially when it comes to like Meghan and everything, it's so important to show that Catherine, like they have these normal lives, they have these normal things. And playing sport is one of the things I think brings them really close as a family. I think they, again, are quite competitive. And so I did really like this event, and I love the asymmetrical blazer here. Such a nice little blazer set from Alexander McQueen. It's sad that they've sort of gotten away from this one, but it's a nice piece. I'm really bummed because I almost got the trousers for the blazer, and they sold out, and I was really sad because, again, on super sale. If you guys are aware as well, and if you want, let's say, some goods, I would keep your eye too on Saks Fifth Avenue, because Saks Fifth Avenue did just file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And so they could be offloading a bunch of stuff from their stores. So that might be a great time to get a really good deal. Sorry, I love shopping deals, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, deal shopping is like my favorite thing ever. It's like, where's the deal? Where's the deal? Let me find it. Let me find it. Let me find it. And so the more and more stuff goes on sale, I'm like, yes, yes. I almost like thought about doing a little bit of a channel where it was like, I would call it like finding buried treasure. It's finding buried fashion treasure. That is what I search for. So there's always great deals to be had, always things that you can find. And you just have to know when to look, how to look, and how often to look. I actually have a full cart right now from Ann Taylor. Yeah. Yeah, Flapper said Saks Fifth Avenue, Chapter 11. Oh, wow. Yeah, I got an email actually from like the new CEO or whatever about the Chapter 11. So if you want some really nice stuff, because one of the things that, like, if you actually can see it here in this picture of Catherine, and you can see it in a lot of royal items, and not everything, because they can get stuff tailored to them. I will say, when I have purchased things that are, let's say, on the pricier end of the spectrum, again, I get everything on sale pretty much, rarely ever pay full price for anything. But when I do get price stuff on the pricier end of the spectrum, you can feel the quality, and the cuts are superior. They are superior. Like, I remember the first time I ever put on, I have one of the Smythe blazers. And I don't have the navy one that Catherine, it was kind of like the first blazer she wore a little bit. I have a lilac one, which is very, very pretty. It's in my fashion room somewhere. Anyways, so I had purchased this lilac blazer. And when I first put it on, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like this immediately takes 10 pounds off me. Like, immediately, the cut was so good. And so when it comes to designer stuff, like, I'm not saying, of course, that you have to buy anything of it, but when it comes to some of these higher end things, there's a reason they're more expensive. It's because I think the cut's better. Like, even designer shoes, the cuts are better. Like, if you look at them compared to Sam Edelman, you can see the quality difference and the cut difference of the heel. They take more time to make a more precise cut of the heel so that the heel is as appealing as possible. So, anyways, that's just my thought. Although I keep losing people the more I talk about fashion. So I was like, maybe this is something for the fashion channel in the future. But I absolutely love finding great deals on royal stuff, guys. They are affordable. If you look in the right places, you can find things. And there are some good things to be had. Don't blow the bank all the time, but there are just some fun things. And this is a good time of year to shop if you are looking for something on the pricier end of the spectrum, like Net-a-Porter, The Outnet, Neiman Marcus, Saks. all these places have sales going on. So anyways, that's just my little plug right there. But let's move on to, I would say, the oddest story of the bunch, you could say, from this week. And I keep checking, guys, Netflix as well. And we don't have the what we watched for the last half of 2025 yet. I was kind of hoping maybe it would come out around like 12 o'clock, like 12 o'clock Western time, which would be about an hour ago. So I'll keep an eye on it. It would be fun if it came out while we were on this little podcast thing to talk about it. But anyways, I do think Catherine looks smashing. I do love the blazer. I think it's a great, great color on her. And what I think too is sort of interesting about this blazer before we move on is that the red color is very strong, and I feel like it can be overwhelming. And this is one of those things too where designer actually, I think, helped here, because you have people who have, let's say, a little bit of a better eye for fashion, and they're not doing mass production. And so because of that, you are able to, I think, pick a better color that's not like, because a red suit could be quite garish. Could be quite garish if not done correctly. It could be quite garish if the quality isn't there. Like, I don't know exactly what they use here, but the quality here is amazing. Let me see, what does it say it's made out of? I have a 44. I can't remember what size that is in Italian 44, but it should say, maybe not. It should say somewhere here what are the, it was made in, not made, but sorry, I was trying to see what exactly it was made out of. But like the quality just of the materials is just so much better. I feel like the blazer itself doesn't come across as quite so garish. And I think the asymmetrical aspect of it makes it a little bit more interesting than just a flat blazer. So let's go ahead and move over to, again, the weirdest story of the week, I have to say, which is this is Miss White. And look, guys, at how many likes this has gotten. 161,000 likes. Like 15,000 retweets, 7,000 comments. Miss White says, the simple diplomatic solution over Greenland is Baron Trump marries Princess Isabella of Denmark, and Greenland is given to America as a dowry. This is dumb. This is very, very dumb. But it's sort of like, again, an interesting, I like interesting thought experiments. And the whole Greenland situation has been quite fascinating, because obviously, like, Greenland doesn't want it, Denmark doesn't want it, Germany sent one lone soldier there to help, like, bolster the NATO prospects. But there is an interesting facet to this as well, which is that, yeah, it is like, who controls certain things is more serious than sometimes we want to believe. And as sometimes minerals get more, if it is a mineral grab, as minerals get more finite and these sorts of things, it will be critically important who controls what. And trade routes in the Arctic has been a huge issue for centuries, actually. Like the whole Northwest Passage or whatever was about trying to find a route through the Arctic. And so the seriousness of Greenland, I mean, to me, in some ways, it's a silly story, because I'm like, why do we care that much about Greenland? But it also reflects like growing tensions in the world. Now, I won't put any particular bearing on who that might be, but there's a lot of time too, people want to just blame one person, but the world is actually quite dangerous. And sometimes people forget that, because we have a very much, you could say, in some ways, because we're not really, I would say my generation, some others, we're not really a quote unquote war generation, which means that, yes, we've experienced 9/11, we've experienced, the invasions into Afghanistan and Iraq, but we haven't experienced like war. And so our perception is somewhat skewed. But there are actors, I think, in the world who genuinely would be very interested in a world war, one that would reset the board again, because the current world system is dominated by the post-World War II results. And so everything about this world right now is a result of World War II, pretty much. Everything. And so because of that, there will be a time, as ever, there is always a time when that will once again reset. There'll be some sort of big conflict and that resets. Now, will Greenland be a huge piece of that? I don't know. But Would a certain country or group controlling most of the Arctic be a threat to everybody else? Yes. And so how you address these things are really, really fascinating because people want to again think that everybody's going to do the right thing, everybody's a good actor, nobody will overstep boundaries or anything like that. And the reality is that's just not the case. The best way to look at global politics is that everybody's in it for themselves pretty much. And those who treat it as an academic exercise and that everybody's going to do the right thing will be steamrolled at some point. Whether literally or figuratively, it will happen. And the perspective of just as a general rule, guys, international law is a misnomer. It does not exist. It exists in theory, but it doesn't exist in reality. There's no way, like, unless you have a global government, there's no way to enact a global policy. There's a reason why the only people who ever go through the international criminal courts are basically from small countries. It's because nobody's going to touch the United States. Nobody's going to try to touch China or Russia. Like, that's just can't do it. So, this is a dumb story, but I find it again to be one that, this could be a reality again at some point. Like, we'll see. Will the whole world be reset back to zero with a massive nuclear conflict? Hopefully not. But can it happen? Yeah. Will the United States claim Greenland? It's looking kind of likely. What that means in the long run, I don't really know. I don't really know any of this, but I just thought it was an interesting conundrum. But would it be, gosh, I was going to say, wouldn't it be cool if an American married into a royal family? But we've seen that go so wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It's like, but we need somebody to marry into a royal family that respects them and proves that Americans are not horrible people. Because Meghan Markle is the worst among us. Not the absolute worst, but she's pretty worse, pretty bad. So, anyways, yeah, that's just a little bit of an interesting thought. Judy says, Greenland, not that important. That really is disrespectful, Brittany. It's really not. In the grand scheme of human history, Greenland has never been that important to anybody. There's a reason why nobody really lives there. People do live there, about 50,000 people. So it's just not in the grand scheme of human existence and experience and in global politics, it's not that big. It's not that important. Let's be honest. But people have made it important. Ergo, it is important. So that is how it is right now. So anyways, it will be interesting to see. So we do have a Mystica Rose. Thank you so much for the super chat saying Baron Trump and Princess Isabella of Denmark. There's no way they're getting married, and an arranged marriage. Those two would never go for it anyways. Those two would never go for it anyways. Yes, of course. It's absolute silliness. It's absolute silliness. But it's also I mean, it would be kind of cool. It would actually be kind of cool if a royal married, let's say, into an American dynasty of some point. That would be kind of interesting. But she is obviously not going to go for that. Not going to go for that. And so, yes, that is the state of it. And of course, we will see where the Greenland situation goes. We'll see. And again, if you guys haven't watched my Danish, I think it's one of the Danish fashion videos or something about it, or maybe another video, I can't remember. Anyways, everything runs together after a certain point. But when it comes to the Danes were really interested in talking to Ambassador Howery about this. They were very, very interested in talking to him about it. It felt like I weirdly kind of stepped into this international incident in a way, because it's I'm the only American there with a whole bunch of Danes. And I really wanted to talk to the American guy, and I could not help them talk to the American guy. And so it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, this is I really became weirdly part of this kind of whole Greenland, Denmark, United States kind of situation. So I feel now a sense of attachment to it, just because they were hoping me as an American would be able to get Ambassador Howery over there. I kind of figured he probably wouldn't want to and he didn't. He totally brushed this aside. It kind of knew it. They still tried. I still tried again. I yelled out, "Happy New Year to you too, sir," or something dumb like that. So if anybody from his office ever listens to me, and that was the dumb person who did that. So anyways, I was really trying to sound very American. I feel like I really did. So it was embarrassing. I probably embarrassed myself in front of all the Danes, but they are definitely something that this is become a really big news story. And even though Princess Isabella obviously is not going to go for this, and neither is Baron Trump, I am sure, but we shall see some movement in the future, you could say, maybe on the case of Greenland and Denmark and all these sorts of things. So we have that story cooking as well. But another piece here, and no, we haven't gotten the what we watch numbers from Netflix yet. I'm like, I want those guys so bad because I really want to analyze them, but they're not there. But let's move over to another thought, since we are talking about, let's say, freezing out. Ha, good transition, right? So we do have pictures from, and again, guys, I was looking at a bunch of the Golden Globes pictures for my Golden Globes fashion review video. If you haven't watched that, you should. Almost has 100,000 views. I should have posted it earlier. Maybe I would have 500,000, but oh man, I didn't. Anyways, so this was so I just put in Netflix or Golden Globes Netflix. So this was the Golden Globes after party. And what I thought was really interesting is that despite being quote unquote close to Netflix wasn't really like Harry and Meghan weren't there. They weren't there at all. I mean, because I kept seeing Ted Sarandos's face pop up, like he's in all these pictures. So there's him and Kerry Washington and Oscar Isaac, Will Arnett. We have Robin Wright over here, Judd Apatow, and Jason Young. Oh, George Clooney and Amal Clooney. And you don't have to be like, and there's Jason Bateman. They say Jason Dawn. It should be Jason Bateman and Will Arnett over there. It says Jason Bateman over there. Anyways, so this was an after party. So it wasn't like the main party. So you didn't have to walk the red carpet, but anybody who's part of Netflix attend this event. We have Adam Sandler and his wife, and you can see all these Netflix things here. Yet Harry and Meghan did not attend at all. And the big interesting question, of course, is why? Because this would be, obviously we would talk about how Harry and Meghan are like dominating things or whatever. But honestly, this is a type of event where they technically, if they are part of the Netflix family, they should be at. This is a time to kind of engage with some of the people within Netflix, to congratulate Netflix on its success and these sorts of things. And so that Harry and Meghan weren't there, like, again, really shows you that they're just not within the system. They're not well liked, and they have, I don't think, a lot of future left with Netflix. And again, if Netflix reveals the numbers, if the numbers finally drop, guys, we shall get a very, very good, I think, representation of the truth of the situation in regard to Netflix. But Netflix, to me, when I look at Netflix and I think about Netflix, and Grace, great point. We will go over the Iranian royals. That is an interesting story we have as well. But when it comes to Netflix, it's totally moving in, I think, a direction away from Harry and Meghan. We had the first indication of that with the not picking up of the Girl Scouts movie, because with Meghan having to show it at Sundance, and I say Meghan, even though Harry and Meghan are attached, is because it's really Meghan's project, let's be honest. But when it comes to Meghan attending or trying to sell that movie, obviously Netflix has a first look deal. So if she couldn't sell it to Netflix, who else is she going to sell it to? Netflix, guys, is the only game in town pretty much anymore. And when it comes to the future of the entertainment industry, like, they're all petrified that Netflix will buy up Warner Brothers and there'll be one less studio going about. Netflix will basically have a pretty much monopoly over the entertainment industry for sure. And So if Netflix doesn't bite, like who else is going to pretty much? I mean, Netflix was smart. They bought up K-pop Demon Hunter, biggest movie of the year by far when it comes to watch time and hours and those sorts of things. Now, granted, Netflix is at some point going to have to figure out, let's say, maybe a better business model. Like they were in the red for a while. They're finally kind of more in the green because they were financing a lot of their film projects with debt. Like they had billions of dollars in debt at some point. I think they've more kind of evened out, but Netflix is the only game. So if Netflix isn't buying Harry and Meghan's material, where are things going? And so they did decide to go with Meet Me at the Lake and the wedding date, I think it is, or something like that. Which sounded like a weird, like, sort of weird self-insert because it's an interracial couple, like, the woman who apparently is quote unquote "curvy" and, like, has a disproportionate body or something that's, I guess, apparently the main aspect of the story. We cannot make stories anymore, guys. Like, I feel like Western storytelling is dead. It's so bad. I was like, "That is not a story." I'm sorry, that's not a story. Anyways, so with those kind of combined things together, like those are only the two Netflix projects that are there. That's all we got for Harry and Meghan. And so I think they are definitely pivoting away from Harry and Meghan. And the first look deal probably will only be enacted in the case of a divorce or something else. Something else. So that is kind of where things stand for sure. And so Steven says, Amazon might buy it as the boss loves Megan. So no, actually, if in the entertainment industry talk, the actual big thing right now with Warner Brothers as well is basically an attempted hostile takeover of the deal by Paramount. So Paramount is financed by the Ellison brothers. So because Amazon owns NGM now, I don't even know if Amazon would be allowed to buy Warner Brothers because they already have like a massive like legacy studio now attached to their streaming service. So I don't know if like for monopoly purposes if they could buy it. I mean, it's a question for Netflix as well, but actually the one that will buy that would potentially that really wants to buy Warner Brothers, put in an all cash bid, like aggressively actually suing Warner Brothers and Netflix over their continued deal to sell is Paramount. So it has nothing to do with Amazon and Warner Brothers or an MGM because it's Amazon MGM Studios. Anyways, so because of all of those things sort of kind of churning together, like this is a very unstable industry. I feel like Hollywood, like it used to be that going to Hollywood and maybe making it big was like a sure bet. It's really not anymore. Like there's a reason why Harry and Meghan are desperately fleeing back to the UK. And it's because not only have they failed, but the industry they've attached themselves to is sort of failing as well. Like nobody watched the Golden Globes. Nobody is like Western entertainment is dead and dying. And it's quite sad because it's an aspect of our culture that has been killed by attempts to make it diverse and inclusive and all these sorts of things has killed storytelling. Storytelling in the West is essentially dead in a lot of ways. And I think some of the new things they come up with sometimes are like too nihilistic and these sorts of things. But I think what Netflix is doing, and it's going to, let's say, what is Netflix going to do? Netflix is going to basically, I think, be looking, I've said this before, I think they're going to be looking to the East. I think they're going to be looking towards other avenues for storytelling because it's not going to be the West anymore. There's not going to be a lot of stories, I think, from the West that they'll be pulling from. I think they're going to be looking more towards the East. And Harry and Meghan just don't fit into that Venn diagram at all. Nothing Harry and Meghan is doing is really impacting anything. So that's just something to definitely keep in mind. But I thought that was really interesting that Harry and Meghan were not included, even though they, like, you know, you would think they technically should because they've been a huge part of the Netflix family. But definitely not anymore. So we do have Vicky here, and I saw this and I did want to clarify. Vicky Hatley said, I joined Substack, but evidently it looks like it costs you to breathe on it. At $60 wiped away in less than a week. I don't recommend it. Frankly, I already paid $5 a month. So it actually, there's no paid function available on my thing. I've thought about it, but I only wanna do it when I can justify doing something like that. But it actually, guys, at this point, if you join my Substack, mine's free. So, there's no pay feature on it. And usually what I would try to do to the best of my abilities is it's just something extra for paid, and then whatever is sort of general is always available, that kind of thing. So, anyways, I saw this really random story. And so I think it says Think Beautifully found this. And I thought this was kind of interesting. So we'll share this real quick. And we got, the YouGov polls as well. But this is as ever available on a UK website called Gift Eat Love, which is really weird to me. So weird. So it's like so incredibly strange, and they don't have that many in stock, but they've made all their own pictures and these sorts of things, and I can't help but think, guys, seriously, seriously, why would you allow something like this to happen? Why would you allow something like this to them to create their own images and stuff? Why is it Megan's doing the heck out of them? I don't know. It's just very strange to me. So I'll be keeping an eye on that because I'm quite curious. I did see this, and so I'll address it. B Witch says, Brittany, you blew it with the derogatory remarks about the Invictus Gays. Glorified talent show. These people have served their country in war zones and suffered traumatic injuries. Yes, I understand. But I have been. But that doesn't really change my assessment of it. And the reason I say that is not as a derogatory towards the veterans, but as a reality of what purpose do these games have that any taxpayer money should be expended on them? Yes, they're veterans, but there are multiple other programs that do the exact same thing that are probably already financed by the government and charities and these sorts of things. Why do we need Invictus on top of that? And what I think and what makes it unsustainable as Invictus is that it's trying very, very hard to be Olympic level. It's trying very, very hard to emulate that. It's not that, though. It's not that. And honestly, as a spectator, it's not enjoyable to watch some aspects of it. I watched sitting volleyball live, which I actually did rather enjoy, but I also thought swimming was boring. Just going to be honest. And so it's not against the veterans, but I think sometimes too, it's good to be reflective of reality and good to be reflective of the fact that these games just don't sell. They just do not sell. And that in part is because what is attractive to the games, or what should be attractive to the games, is the stories of the competitors, but none of those ever get out. And so it's you're watching something and it's just you're just seeing, you kind of watch the professional sports levels to see people at their peak. And there's great successes that happen in the Invictus games, but it's just not very enjoyable to watch, to be honest. That's why it doesn't sell. That's why they can't sell any TV spots for it. It doesn't sell. And I think in part that is because obviously it's not about the veterans anymore. It's about Harry and Meghan. And because of that, it just kind of feels like a talent show. And just because they're veterans doesn't necessarily mean that my taxpayer money should be expended in that way, or anybody should be. That's just my thoughts there. I'm not articulating that very well, but anyways, and that's how it goes there. Auntie Mammy says, oh my goodness, lady, if you cannot have grace to appreciate these amazing athletes, do not show up as a gawker waiting to be entertained. That's why we watch sports, guys, is to be entertained. That is why we watch sports. That is kind of reality. It's just because something there's a perception sometimes in the culture, because just because something looks good or it seems good or whatever, that we should just endlessly indulge it. It's no. What are the cost benefits here? It's only serving 500 people. Why is anybody else paying for it? It should be contained to what it is. And that way it can be successful in the long run and help the people who are competing in the long run. But in the broader scheme of things, again, let's be real. It doesn't have a broad appeal. It's only serving a small number of people. None of their stories get out because that's how the Invictus Games has designed it. And so, yeah, that's what it is. They are athletes. Are they amazing athletes? They're not at the Olympic level, to be quite honest. Some of them are not great athletes. And they're doing it more for the mental health benefits and some aspects of the physical benefits they get from challenging themselves rather than actually being, let's say, quote unquote, amazing athletes. And so that's just kind of the rub. It is what it is. Sorry. Sorry. I just want to like anything that when it comes to taxpayer money, I want to know that's doing a good for everyone and doing massively good on a massive scale. This is just not. It's just not. It's serving 500 people. Like how many veterans are there for it? Like there's, probably hundreds of thousands of veterans in the United States and only like 100 participate in the Invictus Games. Again, not everybody wants to participate in them, of course, but just good to kind of keep that perspective in mind. And yeah, it's not on the Olympic level. Of course not. They do have the Paralympics though. That they can just do the Paralympics. So, anyways, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the YouGov poll. Because those are always interesting. Always interesting. I do like to see, although, again, I am not I don't like that they do polling so much when it comes to the royal family because they're not politicians. They're not politicians. And so because of that, they're not enacting policy and they've never kind of, let's say, what's the they're not enacting things that are like on a case by case basis so quickly. But at the same time, I do find it very, very interesting to see where the temperature is. And so, let's see, did I share? Yes. Okay. So here is the royal family's favorability trackers. So the Prince and Princess of Wales are the most popular royals with 74 and 77% having a positive opinion of them. Britons are twice as likely to have a positive opinion of Charles than a negative one. At just 19% having a positive view of Meghan, that is her lowest recorded amount to date on YouGov. Only 3% of Britons see Andrew Mountbatten Windsor positively, also the lowest recorded by YouGov so far. So 64% of Britons believe the UK should continue to have the monarchy, with 58% believing it is a good for Britain. This is actually quite a concerning number. That's a really, really, really concerning number. Because when it comes to the monarchy, you want that to be good, to be as high as possible. But these numbers are starting to dip down into half measures. And this again reflects why a let's say, what is it? A crisis PR person is necessary. Why the royals really, really, really need to kind of really figure out how to address things, because and it's not just, oh, William and Catherine should take over and everything will be fine. That's not the answer here. I like to be, let's say, the realist in the world. So the realist is here when it comes to the royals is that they're losing popularity. They're losing ground. And so they have to kind of figure out. So Marjorie asked, is there any other comparison to figures for other royals? That would be good for a longer, more comprehensive video. But I want to say for the Danes, it's upwards of 70 or 80% are in favor of the monarchy. And some of the other countries, it's quite high as well, in those figures, particularly for the Scandinavians. There was a Swedish royal family poll, let's see, that came out not too long ago. That had some revelations about, I don't know how long ago it was. It was before the new year. I'm hoping to find it because it would be actually good thought to do comparison to others. And there was new one for the Danes as well, but I'm really hoping that we see one for the Swedish monarchy. And yeah, just not seeing one like I know it's in here somewhere. But the question is where? Because so we do have one for the Norwegian royals here. So this is a gentleman from Norway. And so he found this that 73% support the monarchy, while 18% are in favor of a republic. And they've regained some ground after losing some ground after the arrest of Marius and the wedding of Martha Louise and Direct Verrett. But 40%, 41% have formed a more negative view of the royal family. Again, that's not all that great. And so we'll keep looking here because I think we have a Swedish royal one, which was quite interesting. And I don't see it. Darn. But I want to say it was fairly high. So when we have the Danes, support for the monarchy remains stable at 72%. So the Brits are definitely, you could say, they're 10 points below generally where some of their competitors are. And that's not good. So let's look at the overall thing here. So royal family favorability ratings. So January. So here are the positive. So you see them in descending order. We do have Beatrice and Eugenie. And Beatrice has edged out Eugenie. Quite interesting. And then this is, I think, to me, always an interesting metric of the ones who, quote unquote, the don't knows. Because what's interesting, guys, about the don't knows is that the don't knows you can push either positively or negatively. You can push them in either direction. They haven't formed a firm opinion yet. So this is good news, of course, for Sophie and Edward and Beatrice and Eugenie, is that they can push people more, hopefully, towards the positive end of the spectrum than the negative end of the spectrum, because it is hard to claw back from negative to, let's say, don't know to positive. So if you really want to claw back from, or if you want to increase your favorabilities, they have like the best bet of doing so, because you can do, let's say, 36 by 39 and you're upwards of 60, 70% in positive ratings there for Eugenie. The bad problem is when you get to these negative perceptions, because these ones are, again, a bit harder to move here. So we do have, obviously, Andrew being the worst at 90. 90% have a negative opinion of him. 66% have a negative opinion of Meghan. So 2/3 of Britons don't like her. And Harry's not far behind, just 6 points behind at 60%. Now, Queen Camilla's concerning here. She has 45% and Charles at 31%. Both of those numbers are quite bad. Whereas Catherine and Williams, of course, William has 15%. Catherine has 12% negative perception. Anne has 12%. So as close as you like, being close to Anne, I feel like is very positive. And Sophie's in good graces here because very few people have a negative opinion of her. But for Harry and Meghan, like, you look at a poll like this and you got to wonder, why in the world would Harry and Meghan even, let's say, like, attempt to come back in the UK? There just isn't a lot of basis for it, to be quite honest. There just isn't a lot of basis for it. And so there's just not a lot of places for them to go. And there's not much they can do to claw back. Like, the perception is a bit more firm for Harry than it is for Meghan, but she has a much more negative perception than he does. And like, his is 10 points higher than hers at 31 compared to 19. There just isn't an appetite for the two of them in the UK. And I feel like that's what this poll shows, is that there's just not like a good perception of either one of them. And the future, I would have to argue, is looking sort of bleak. Like, what you could say can they do? Because there's not an avenue, a route, a strong desire for more Harry and Meghan in the UK. And of course, what's sort of crazy about this is that they burned so many bridges, which is absolutely insane. Like, so many bridges have been burned that no matter what they do, they kind of sort of screwed themselves on this matter because they went so far that nobody, like, on either continent really likes them. I mean, it's quite astounding to kind of annoy people on multiple continents. That's quite a like that's quite a achievement, you could say. So Harry and Meghan here, I think, have a big hill to climb. And when you have, again, that little bit of don't know is very important because, again, you can sway it either way. People don't know you enough to have a strong opinion of you. People know Harry and Meghan enough to have a very strong opinion of them and Prince Andrew. And unfortunately, Camilla and Charles as well. The specter of Diana still reigns in the House of Windsor. And let's see if I press get the data. Let's see if we get anything all that good for the perception here. Oh, no, it just gives me it, and that's not what I wanted. It just gives me a little Excel spreadsheet of that. I was like, no, no, no. They'll give you sometimes the big breakdown. But here's, like, you can see kind of the favorability, and you can see the cliff Harry fell off of. I was like, that's your wife, buddy. That your wife did that to you. Like, in March 2023, so after Spare, it was at its lowest at 24% in January. So he's clawed back a little bit, but it's definitely not clear. And then again, you can see how they used to poll like every year or two, couple of years, and now when you get so much, you get a much more diverse opinion. But most of the royals have, like, Charles kind of went down and then kind of went back up again, but most of them have sort of, you could say, struggled. Like, they've stayed relatively the same, but they have, I think, all and generally seen a little bit of a dip in their popularity. Of course, Meghan's highest was in October of 2019, and it's been cratering ever since. So she got to 20 before, but now it's at 19. So we're going down, 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 down. Princess Anne has seen hers rise, and so has Edward. So they're both in good spots here. And then Andrew, boom goes to dynamite. And so this is, I don't think, in some ways great for the institution. And we've seen this they're polling it more, so we're seeing more variation, but I think we're seeing a general downward trajectory, you could say. Like, we'll get spikes when the Queen died, October 9, 2019. That was when Meghan announced her pregnancy. I can't think of anything big that happened at that date. Obviously, September, that was when the Queen died, and so we had a little bit of a frustration after that. It kind of grew down and up again. So, and should have an elected head of state instead. So that movement, I mean, it's not steady as well, but it's growing. It's definitely growing. And so that all to say that when it comes to the future, it's not as certain as you would like to think. And this is why I do like to offer and share constructive criticism, because things, you can only learn to get better. And that's important, is to learn to get better and to recognize, I think, because some people want to, put their head in the sand and they just want to ignore realities. And the reality is, things aren't, let's say, as rosy as I'm sure the monarchy would like them to be. And I don't think it helps them at all, or, some of their fans to think, well, everybody's going to think the same way. They're just going to love the monarchy forever. No, they're not. No, they're not. And this is the time period where things are changing and people's perceptions of a monarchy are adjusting and changing. And I hate to say it, but it is true when you have a lot of immigration into a country as well, that can change the dynamics quite a bit. That can change the dynamics quite a bit. So the future is not looking too rosy. And I don't think, again, don't anticipate William being king skyrocketing the favorability. I don't think that's actually probably going to help much at the end of the day. It'll help a little bit. But honestly, as well, William and Catherine had their detractors too. And so it's not an end all fix all to have William become king. And that's not how it should be treated. And it's not should be like, oh, once William becomes king, everything's going to be fine. It's probably not. Honestly, the attitudes in the UK are changing. And I don't know if the Brits are changing fast enough to move with them. Things are still running a bit slow, a bit behind the times. And the monarchy, I'm not saying that they should move very quickly and adjust so incredibly quickly to the modern times. But it is also, I think, indicative of that, yes, things will adjust and change, and sometimes not in the direction that you want. And it's the time now to put your best foot forward and to not rely on Queen Elizabeth to get you through. Because I think so much of the positive press, you could say, or the positive perception of the British is based around the reign of Queen Elizabeth. It's not based on now. And so they can't rely on Queen Elizabeth to keep them strong. And William could do the exact modernization right, or he could go too far and the whole thing falls apart. I think these are much more precarious times than people want to believe. And it's the love of Catherine and William, I think, is very real for a lot of people, but it's not going to be the end all be all for the fix because they're still only at 70%. They're not. I mean, Queen Marguerite of Denmark, if I remember correctly, she's like at like 80% plus. She is very almost, I want to say it's almost 90. Let me find it because that one is a bit. Yeah, Queen Mary has an 85% favorability. Queen Marguerite has 80. What is it? Let's see. She has 88% view her favorably. Frederick, 87. Mary, 85. Or sorry, 80. Yeah, 85. So you have 88, 87, and 85 in terms of popularity. That's insane numbers. Those are insane numbers. So you got 88 here, 87 here, Mary, 85. Crown Prince Christian being 76, I find a little bit questionable, but we've also hardly seen him do anything. So we've seen a lot from Catherine and William, and they can only hit that number. So this is one of the things and one of the, let's say, realities about being royal. And I think especially in this modern era is that it's not a guaranteed thing. You have to modernize, but not overly modernize. There is a fine balance. And the question is who's going to hit that balance and hit that balance well? I don't know. So anyways, guys, that is all I have for this latest edition of the afternoon tea. I almost said the Crown Report. And I keep waiting and hoping that Netflix releases its top stuff, but it hasn't yet. However, I can say it's on when Netflix did, guys, it's sort of wrap up of 2025. Meghan didn't really make any of the lists. So, guys, that is all we got. So let me know what your thoughts and comments. We'll answer them. We do have Lizzie who gave a super chat saying, please remember to hit the like button for this afternoon tea live stream. Why, thank you, Lizzie B. And you gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Lizzie. I really do appreciate it. So Clifford says, you're allowed your opinions in the US But here in the UK, the majority of the people in council estates up north favor the BRF. These polls mostly go to the south and are not entirely UK of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Yes, while they may mostly be based out of London, most of your country's policies are based out of London. And so because the London population is so huge, it does offset the rest of the country. So even if there might be stronger support elsewhere, if there's not stronger support in other spots, you're going to lose. That's just it. Because I lived in a state where half of it was very liberal and half of it was very conservative, and there were more people on the liberal side, so the liberal side ran the state. Like, even if there was a good chunk of conservatives there was just almost nothing they could do because the liberal side definitely ran the state. And so that's that kind of divide thing. The reason why you get so much more, let's say, skewed on the negative side is because there are most likely more people who think negatively, and you can pull more people in those areas and you're going to get that result. Doesn't mean that the northern places or the places outside London aren't very pro-royal, but if they can't offset the number of people in the city, that is what it is. It's just kind of reality. So, Tina, BB, thank you. Thanks, Brittany. Everyone, have a good weekend. Barry Elementa says, thanks, Brittany. Have a good weekend, hon. Why, thank you. Flappers27 says, thanks, Brittany. Great live. Seabass says, thank you, Brittany. Stacy says, bye, Brittany. Have a good evening. You too. Eva Williamson said, Meghan had a royal wedding, although she's divorced. Yeah. Yeah, they definitely are not as stingy as they used to be. Princess Goose says, what would happen if the BRF went away? What do they actually own versus what the country owns? That's a big question, too. I think the royal family should walk away with the duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall. Obviously, the Duke of Westminster, controls what you would consider the Duchy of Westminster. So that would be what I would say, but the government, I think, would argue otherwise. It'd be a mess. It'd be a mess if they did it. Like, I'm not advocating for it at all. I want the monarchy to remain, but we also have to be realistic about the approval numbers and what those are actually looking like, and the changing demographics of the UK. If you become a minority in your own country, like, other people may not want the royals in power anymore. So Leo Jackson says, what can the royals approval can help the royals approval rating if they save the earth by fighting an alien overlord? Probably, but it's just one of those things where it's just going to be perhaps quite sad. It's just going to be something that's quite sad. And so we'll see. Athena says, Brittany, did you know Queen Sophia's sister, Princess Irene of Greece and Denmark, died yesterday? I did. So I posted about it on X. And so I mentioned it in the Crown Report that Princess Irene, because of her illness, Queen Sophia had canceled all her engagements. There's going to be, I believe, a funeral tomorrow in Madrid. And then there will be she'll be laid to rest in Greece in the family cemetery there. So Alice Singh says, thank you for the gift subscription, Lizzie. And P Pacific says, days gone by, Melania Trump was a great supporter to Harry in the Invictus athletes. Melania was Harry's escort during the opening ceremonies for the 2017 Toronto games. Yes, she was there with Harry. So, and we do have Illy Carrie Doll says, my first live. Thank you, Brittany. You are welcome. Princess Goose says, as a historian, I want the constitutional monarchy to stay, but eventually all good things come to an end. Yes, they do. Obviously, there were a lot of monarchies. In Germany, there were a lot of principalities and various monarchies. I mean, they were all kind of coalesced. You had Italy as well, had some of its own systems. You had, Hungary and Romania and Poland and tons of places of Russia. They used to have monarchies that are no longer. So we want everything to last, but the reality is not everything always does. Christina, thank you so much for the super chat. For the membership, the gifted membership. I'm sure some of you will really appreciate it. Leo Jackson says, I feel like kingdoms shouldn't take immigrants' opinions on monarchy, to be honest. But unfortunately, that's just kind of what happens. You have either immigrants that assimilate and enjoy it or ones who don't. And so that's the question for the UK. So Princess Goose says, are the Prince and Princess of Greece related to Prince Philip? Yes. But the connections there, that's why Prince William's godfather was King Constantine. So let's see. So we have a Prince Philip, Glucksburg. So his dad was Prince Andrew of Greece. And so his father was King George the First of Greece. So they would come down that line. So because he's not, so he was the son of Prince Andrew, King Constantine the First of Greece had Paul, and Paul was king of Greece. So yeah, they were like second or third cousins or something. I don't know exactly. I can't do the cousin math. I can't do totally the cousin math. Natalie says love from South Korea. Vicky says great videos you have put out this week while on trip. Thank you. Oh, Flapper says Hawaii used to be a sovereign country. It was, and it was a monarchy. Oh, yes. Barbara, thank you so much for reminding me. Iranian royals, what's happening there? So I am not, let's say, well-versed in exactly what's going on, but there has been a lot of protests and uprising in Iran. And Iran is obviously an Islamic state and deposed its Shah way back in the 1970s. And so with all this recent kind of unrest in Iran, it really seems like the Islamic regime is going to collapse, that there has been some question or thoughts or what have you about if the Iranian royals are coming back. Are we getting a return of the Iranian royal family? It's an interesting thought question. I sort of doubt we'll get new Shahs of Iran. I don't think that'll probably be in the cards, but we may get maybe a resurgence, or like maybe the descendants of the Shah will be allowed back into Iran. They might have already been able to go back to Iran, but there might have some sort of place within the Iranian system if it does fully depose the Ayatollah and they go with more of a, let's say, a secular sovereign state rather than a religious one. They may go in that direction, or like none of this may come to pass. Who knows? I mean, it sort of started, you could say, with the women really kind of starting to protest by not putting on the headscarves and these sorts of things. So we are definitely seeing a switch in the country, which obviously has geopolitical ramifications. And one of them, of course, is the Iranian royals. Now, what is really interesting about the Iranian crown jewels, which is still owned by the state of Iran, is that they are so valuable that they are literally the backup for the currency. They back up their currency by kind of ensuring it, or using their crown jewels as collateral. That's how much they're worth. And so that's a very interesting facet. I would love to see the Iranian crown jewels. They are actually held in the state bank. So like the State Bank of Iran, or whatever it's called, like the National Bank of Iran, or like the Federal Reserve in the United States, whatever their equivalent is, literally holds the crown jewels in a vault. I think they're on display too, but maybe I'm wrong. Holds their crown jewels as collateral for the currency. So that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. And so that's like a really interesting facet. But will Iran change all that much? You could say. I mean, probably not. But it's still an interesting thought experiment. Who knows? Who knows? Like the whoever the descendant of the Shah is could come in and go, yeah, I want to run for president, and maybe he wins. Stranger things have happened. So I would say never say never. Like but like it's a strong possibility, probably not. But lots going on right there, lots to think and pray about when it comes to whatever the future looks like. All right, Vicky, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Congratulations. That is awesome. We also have Lizzie B, Ms. Brittany. Which three monarchies would you bring back from being defunct if it would be possible in terms of helping people with charity organizations, diplomacy, and tourism? Ooh, interesting question. So obviously I would love for the Russian royals to come back. mostly because hopefully they'd be able to recover all the Russian jewels that were stolen and sold by the state. And I feel bad for how everything ended with them. So it'd be lovely to see the Russians come back. And the Habsburgs coming back in, that would be kind of cool. When I was in Hungary, I went to I was staying at a hotel on like the Castle Rock or whatever, where the castle and the palace are and stuff. And I toured a little bit there, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know. Cause I know Hungary was part of the Habsburg Hungarian Empire. And so like all of it runs together. And I'm like, there's so much about the monarchies and everything I don't know. And all these little kingdoms that I'm just not even aware of, really. And I'm so overwhelmed by that knowledge. I really don't know that much. And so, because I feel like I'm picking the various obvious ones, but let's see if we picked maybe a more obscure one. I don't know if there was descendants of Vlad the Impaler for like a Romanian. Well, there is a Romanian royal family. Technically, they go to events, but they're not particularly apart. But let's see, maybe. But that would be Wallachia, not the whole Romania. So that's a bit different. But maybe Poland, because I did kind of check out some of the Polish like monarchy when I was in Krakow a couple of years ago. So Dr. Deb O'Cherry says, I used to buy $400 silk dresses for work, hospital director at like $800 now, but worth it if you need only 3 to 4 in your lifetime. Yeah, like that's the nice thing about buying nice items as well. It's like if they're good quality, they'll last you forever. Nicole says more appropriate for the monarch to open the Commonwealth Games, not anything else. Yeah, I agree. And again, like the Invictus Games can't exist, but I think it just needs to be a much smaller endeavor. Like it's pushing it outside the realm of what makes it feasible. And so it's basically there to just feed Harry's ego and not really to help the competitors. So Sarah on the stairs says, how about silk scarves to wrap your wines? Didn't Meghan do that? She's like, if in case you didn't know how to wrap your wine. I was like, Meghan, people like there are wine bags. There are wine gift bags. Most people will buy a wine gift bag than buying a scarf to wrap the wine in that they don't get back. 28 Flying Dutchman said, Iran will never change. It's a lost cause. Once a dictatorship takes hold, it doesn't leave. Well, I think most of the Middle East really has struggled with not having some sort of dictatorship. Like they kind of seem to naturally default more to that than some of, you could say, Western countries. And so that's, probably a distinct possibility. And like when you think of the UK, I mean, the reason we have the democracy that we did goes all the way back to the Magna Carta. Like back in the 1200s. That's why it's in the National Archives. If you go to the National Archives, you can see the original Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Magna Carta, because all of those together form the foundation of what has become sort of Western democracy, which has its flaws, but much better than a lot of other things. Dr. Debo Cherry said, hey, I started from the beginning, so I'm out of sync, but I hope you talk about the designer suing Harry's wife for returning dresses more than 47 over 5 years. I haven't heard about that, but I wouldn't probably put much stock in that. To be honest, it's not really a story that interests me very much unless I hear about it from the designers. It was like, was it Givenchy or something? I think I saw something about that on X. So somebody, it says it's from like Hollywood Top Stories. It says Chanel sued Meghan. Oh, so like the International Times says, is this a social media trap? I'm like, I'm gonna guess the answer is yes. Yeah, no evidence of a filed lawsuit found. Yeah, I would say this is just complete and utter hogwash. I don't think, like, especially Chanel, she hasn't even worn that much Chanel, guys. Now you can be banned from like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, but usually for, let's say, one woman, I saw her story is that she was actually traveling and bought, let's say, 5 bags in like 5 different countries. That got her banned because they were worried about her buying them and like reselling them and these sorts of things. So you can get banned that way. Of course, I think if you returned excessively, you could get banned. But guys, Megan owns one Chanel dress and she didn't even pay for it. And it looks horrible on her. It makes her look so wide. So I just don't believe that story. Steven says, hopefully it won't be such a mess as Syria, Libya, or Afghanistan. They're all messes. So the reality is, at least when it comes to the Middle East, guys, is that it's always been a mess. Historically, everything, it's been a mess, guys. It's always been an epic train wreck there in the Middle East from the beginning. So will it be any better now? No, it's never really been peaceful. Like the oxymoron of world peace is just like dumb or idiotic. And no offense to anybody, but those coexist stickers, bumper stickers, I hate them because it's like, no, that's not how human beings work. We're not ever going to coexist that way because just simple nature gets in the way. It just does. And some groups of people don't like other religious groups that they don't agree with, and they'll be violent towards them. We've seen that throughout history as well. So again, just something to keep in mind. All right, Eva gifted 5 Royal News Network memberships. Why, thank you so much, Eva. I really, really do appreciate it. And so we have here, so Alice Singh says, it's amazing you're so knowledgeable about all the royal history, Brittany. Good for you, Brittany. I know probably more than most, but there's so much. So much. Like just being in Hungary is like, I really don't know any of the royals here. Really don't know. But there's like, they have a castle and they have royals and they have a museum for, their royals. And like, oh my God, like there's just so much, guys, especially when you get kind of away from Britain, because so much of our even history here is British. So one of the things I did when I was in Denmark is actually like buy a history of Denmark book and then they have like this book series at the palace at Rosenborg of just like little booklets of all the different kings and queens. Why? Because I can't find books on them on Amazon. I put in their name and nothing comes up. And so it's just, I actually have an old book about like Queen Christina of Sweden or something. I found it at I really just need to go to a lot of like antique bookstores and used bookstores because there are people I just can't find anything about. And if it's not British or it's not French, and maybe a little bit German, it's hard to find books on royals in those other countries. And I so want to, because I want to know so much more. It just takes time to find them. And it's just hard to find. And then I have to get time to read. Clifford says the Iranians have been pushing to have their royal family back. And if the Ayatollah is removed, then it is possible that the royal heir who is in the USA might go back. Yeah, it's always a possibility. Do I totally believe it? I don't know, but we'll see. Lizzie says, I would love to see the crown that Empress Farah wore to the coronation. It's big and beautiful and full of gemstones. Yes, it is. You need to do a counting the centuries on it. Leo Jackson says, the royals, I would love to be back. Russia, Italy, Portugal. Ooh, yeah, the Portuguese. Didn't see the thing about the Portuguese. As a family, I don't, again, know anything about. Been to Portugal, though. Sarah on the stairs says Russian royalty back would be interesting. And you also say, I believe, this is Susan Signet. My apologies. I believe that they made a point of telling the veteran stories that would help boost interest by focusing on whatever talent they are able to procure. Harry and Meghan make the veteran second. Yeah. And there's just an aspect of it. And the thing for me is when it comes to interest in the games and seeing it maybe as more something real, the part of the problem is that as a spectator, when you don't know the story, you're not invested in the competitor, it makes some of the enjoyment of watching like a little bit less because you're not dealing with, let's say, the elite of the elite. I think to sell the Invictus games, it's critical to have the veteran stories be first and foremost. Otherwise, it's just, again, just a thing for Harry. And it just becomes, I think, loses and diminishes all function. Princess Goose says, isn't King Charles III related to the Romanian monarchy? Yes. Clifford says, have you considered the Southern African royals? Not really. Dr. Deb says, the most expensive stores can afford to mark things down the most. I strictly shop at best stores. The more expensive, the better chance of getting a good deal. My daughter's prom dress was $12. Congratulations. I always am so excited when I find something like super duper cheap. I bought this ridiculous coat and I want to say it was like 10 times the price I paid for it. And I was like, oh, I still paid probably way too much for it. But it is super cool. So P Pacific says the Spanish royal family knew Queen Elizabeth II's as Lilibet. Not many were aware of those close familial bonds. Cousins, special. Yeah, Carol says Prince Philip was related to Catherine the Great and Marie Antoinette. Farrell Elemental says cashmere is worth every penny. I highly recommend the Nordstrom cashmere, by the way. You can get some great deals at Nordstrom Rack for it too. Sarah on the Stairs says, my mom was named Antoinette after her. Very cool. Shell Bell says, thanks, Eva. That was very nice. Dr. Deb says, I'm only halfway through. Where is she stuck on buying cheap couture? I'm obsessed. Yeah, Tina says HG Tudor says it's a fake story. Yeah, it's definitely a fake story. Like again, guys, if now this is not the end all be all because obviously the Times of London really made a big boo boo with their reporting recently as well. But if no other major outlet is reporting it, like you can kind of guarantee it's fake. And if no outlet picks it up, yeah, you can kind of guarantee it's fake. Gabrielle Good says, I would have to know if royals were monsters or not. Imagine society starving while the royals have banquets. Back in the day, it would have been in stark contrast. There must have been good royals. There were good royals and there were bad royals, and bad royals can do good things and good royals can do bad things. So that's sort of a misnomer, but that is actually all of human beings. There is monarchy or not, people will still starve. Like you can there are people starving on the streets right now in the United States, I'm sure, who could get into housing and be just fine, but they're struggling with their addiction. So they don't want to, because that would mean giving up their addiction. And so the factor of the matter is as well is that, yeah, there are people who have and people who have not. And that is just simply the reality of human existence. And that is because as the world, we're broken. And so because of that innate brokenness, you can never fix every ill of society. So that's just kind of is how it is. And some people did better and some people did worse. Ms. Potato Pirate says, I wonder if Meghan was just insufferable before she married Harry with the Japanese scarf tying crap wine and handwriting, or if the wedding blew her ego up that much. It was a mix. It was a definite mix. It was definite mix. Anne Lids a lot says there are plenty of fiction with the British royals on YouTube too. Yes. Yeah, Clifford says, what is the website selling as ever things in the UK? It's called Gift Eat Love. It's very weird. Lizzie B says, I would bring back China. Ooh, another good one. Ethiopia, because of their cultural heritage, and Egypt because of their ancient pharaohs. So I don't know if there was even a king in Egypt right now, but like you're talking like ancient revival, because I don't know if there's been kings in Egypt, because you had the ancient Egyptians, then they got taken over by the Romans, and then you kind of had the influence of Christianity with Coptic Christians in Egypt, which are like the actual historically most connected to the ancient Egyptians. And then you have obviously the Muslim invasions. So Egypt was part of whatever the Muslim empire was. I don't know when they had their own kings again. Modern, although they do have, I think they did have Egyptian royalty, because I feel like we have Egyptian tiaras. Princess Goose says the Ottomans had it okay for a while. They did. Yeah, and there was an interesting, I think in Hungary, they had, because they were more kind of on the Ottoman sweep. And so they had, like, there was some sort of cannon stuck in a building somewhere. Or maybe that was in the Netherlands. I think that was in the Netherlands, and I was seeing something on Instagram. But I want to say too that what was interesting is I think in Hungary, if I remember correctly, because they had their stuff on top of the hill in the palace, and it got hit by a mortar or something and exploded, which is actually what happened to the Parthenon. So if you're in Greece, not ancient Greece, but Greece, and you go to Athens and you go up to the Parthenon, you'll see a big giant hole in the back of it, basically. Like they've kind of rebuilt it. You can tell like there's kind of the back of it is a little bit like hollower and these sorts of things. And it was supposed to be closed in because that's where the statue of Athena was. And that's because they put their munitions up there. And wouldn't you know it, it got hit and exploded. So that's why there's so much like kind of chaos and destruction around, is because of that mortar blast. Sarah on the Stairs says, I was shocked about how different Iran was then. Would be mistaken for a Western country. Yes, it would. It would. Princess Goose says, coexist is just give peace a chance. It goes against human nature. It's interesting. Cain versus Abel happened so early in the Bible. Exactly. Yeah. CJ Cha says, have you been to Schronbrunn Palace in Vienna? Yes, I have. So I went there a couple years ago. Gabriel Good says Markle makes designer clothing looks horrific, which is community service. People would not be craving owning clothes if she made them look like bad. Yeah, and the funny thing is that she is some of the pieces she chooses are not bad, but she can't style them. World Gone Mad 24 says, "Hi Brittany, I'm from the Middle East, but moved to the States. The Middle East, especially where I'm from, it's always shaky, so shaky that my generation has a nickname, Gulf War babies." Yes, I can imagine. So glad you made it over here for sure. And Lisa. 68 Hall says Queen Christina of Sweden is a very interesting character. You should definitely read that. Why, thank you. Yes, I am definitely interested in it for sure. Alice Singh says, "That's interesting. I didn't realize that books were hard to find. They are on certain royal families. I would say, I forgot to add the Russian. So I would say the British, of course, ubiquitous. French as well. Maybe a little bit of the Spanish, maybe a little bit of the Germans, and then the Russians. Those are the main royal families that are very easy to find books to give about. I put some of the other, like, a Danish royal or a Swedish royal, because I really wanted a book on like Charles. I can't remember which number he was, of Sweden, who had this sort of rivalry with Peter the Great. Like, Charles ended up dying on the battlefield, like, against Peter the Great. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to know more about this rivalry. And there's like no books on it, at least no books in English. And so that's one of the things I found really interesting as I go through this, and that it's harder to find books on certain topics. So like a Belgian royal family, I don't even know if you could find one on, well, okay, except for King Leopold's Ghost, which is not the best of tales. True, but not, I'm sure, one that they agree with. And then I think they have a book on the Burgundies. That's what we got. We might have a book on King William of Orange and William and Mary, because they were obviously Dutch and UK. But Lynn Gideon says, if only 3 crowns could exist, which would you save? Ooh, well, I would say the Brits, just because it's the Brits. Now that's a hard question, because there was some I would save just for the jewelry. I mean, if I would have to say one on the chopping block, would probably be the Norwegians, just because they're the youngest. Maybe the Belgians too, because they're younger. Because like for dynastic and historical reasons, I would like lean on the British. I'd have to see, but maybe the Danes, because maybe they go back really far. The Danish and Swedish royalty, if you save one, you almost kind of save the other, because they're so intermarried. And the Spanish. Oh, and I forgot the French. Bring back the French. Oh, I forgot about the French. So Tinel E. Adams says, "Hi, Brittany. I am South African, and there are no royals, sadly. Lady C has a book on Empress Bianca the First. I think she's Russian royalty. Ooh, I haven't heard of Bianca. Very interesting." Steven says, Netflix limits other media access to the Invictus games. The wider audience also, Harry and Meghan on screen time more than the veteran sports. I don't think that's correct, because I don't think Netflix has any vested interest in the Invictus games. It doesn't make any money. Nobody would watch. So it's like the audience is like, if you watch the YouTube channel for the Invictus games, it's a really, really small audience. I don't think Netflix has any vested interest in preventing anybody from doing anything, like any media access from accessing the Invictus games. I don't think they care. Alsing says, "I just got Diana's sweater on Amazon. It's really nice, very comfortable." Carla Joe says, "Hi, Brittany. Can't stay, but wanted to pop in and say hi. Keep calm and drink tea. We'll watch the replay." Why, thank you. I'm Allison says, "It's not even serving the 500. It's really not." Leo says, "I am playing a summoning game on the phone, which you summon historic figures, and I just got Marie Antoinette." I was like, I started reading that comment, going, "Where's this going?" Are we summoning things? We're getting Mademoiselle Rhapsody says, "Good discussion. Bye all." Bye. I'm Allison says, "The change would happen if the insurance companies that support the treatments would pay up." Yeah, Lynn Gideon says, "There's almost no published story I take at face value anymore. Where are the Walter Cronkites of journalism?" Yeah, that's why I was really disappointed in the Times of London, because it's like, I want there to be like, because the sad thing about the collapse of mainstream media, and I, guys, I'm not a huge fan of mainstream media. But the benefit of mainstream media is that you have checks and balances. So it has to go through legal if you're making very serious claims. It has to go through your editor. They have to vet things. They question you, and it makes your reporting better because you can't just slap anything up. Or that's at least how it used to work. Now, even in the mainstream outlets, they're able to just slap things up. But there was a time, and that's sort of the bad aspect of, you could say, YouTube, is that you're relying on the person who's giving the information to have their own internal vetting process, that they are willing to go through and go, hey, you know what, this story doesn't make sense. So that's why, like, when I say, yeah, I'm just not a fan of, or I don't think there's a lot of credence to most of Shooter Scoop's reporting. That's just a conclusion I've come to. Other people can have other perceptions, but that's why I don't really rely on his stuff for any stories, because I just don't necessarily buy it. And not that he's probably not good at giving other scoops and sources. I'm sure he is, but I just question the aspect of that on royalty. And that's on me. That's why I go with, yes, I'm not always a fan of it, but I go with the Telegraph, the Times, the Daily Mail, the Sun. Yes, they're not perfect publications, but they do go through some sort of vetting process. And the bad thing about some aspects of YouTube and TikTok and these sorts of places is that there is no vetting process. And so people slap up anything. And unfortunately, a lot of people will just believe it at face value. And that's a danger. Gabrielle Good says, Brittany, you are so wise and why I enjoy watching you. Yes, humans suck in general. And when I see the kind of altruistic people, it's heartwarming, like Catherine and William. Yes. Lizzie B says there was a king in Egypt. Yes, Miss Brittany. Yeah. I just would have to, like, because I'm sure it was part of something else. So that's where I'm curious. World Gun Man says King Farouk was removed in the early 1900s when the Brits were in the Middle East. That makes sense. Kira Cole says your views on history are fascinating. Why, thank you. Why, thank you. I hope they're interesting in a good way. Kathy says, you're still posting this old rumor. The only ones who believe it are the ones who need to talk about Meghan. Dude, did you watch the video, Kathy? I said I didn't believe it. My goodness, Kathy, you need to actually watch the videos. You might learn something. You might actually learn something. I actually did the whole thing to tell everybody I thought the Invictus demands were complete hogwash. Watch the video from the beginning. I address it. Len Gideon says, technically, the U.S. had the monarchy until the pesky Revolutionary War. I know, we don't have it. Oh, Princess Goose says, didn't Greta Garbo do a video on or a movie on Queen Christina? She might have. Paige says, reporting by Rob Shooter and Tom Sykes always leaves me highly skeptical. I kind of have a feeling Tom Sykes is a little bit more on the pulse. I would go with his reporting more on than Rob Shooter. Squirrel Lot says new books on Catherine and William coming. Yes, I'm very excited. Mon and P says bring back the Portuguese royal family. Yes. I'm for all of them coming back, guys. Princess Goose says, I've studied a little bit about her, but it's so hard to know if what we learned is touched by a current point of view. Was Greta Garbo one version of the story, or was it the USA British? So we will have to see. But yeah, my book, because it's older, might be better about that. Gabriel Good says, I love learning about history, especially royalty. In France, they were not allowed to leave the room during the ball, so they had to be standing up in front of everyone. Fun fact. Oh my gosh, there were so many weird things out there, guys. So many weird things people did. I was kind of bummed though, because when I went to Rosenborg Castle, they had removed, there was like apparently a prop like chair in there in the palace that was like a whoopee cushion chair or something, but like it was like water, so it would make your pants wet. It was like a prank chair. Seabass says you don't have to buy it. Everyone has a right to their opinion. Exactly. Mystica Rose says, hey, Brittany, why don't you write a book about one of the more obscure royals? I bet you could uncover a lot in your research. I would like to. I'd like to get the time to write more because I really want to write more. Tennille Adams says, Brittany, any thoughts about Wallace Simpson? Do you think it's worth a deep dive? Love your content, Brittany. I enjoy waking up to your content in the Middle East. Why, thank you. Yes, I would love to do a deep dive on Wallace Simpson. So I do have several Wallace Simpson books. I actually go through and I look for them because I want to do some deep dive research. It's kind of hard though, because I kind of am in maybe a sticky situation for a little bit, but it might get better, just more time to devote to research and maybe hiring a research assistant or something, although I'm very picky because I do actually want to understand the information myself. And like the always question is, can somebody do the research correctly? That's always what I struggle with. So I'm sure somebody can. I'm sure somebody can. And so, yeah. So Vanessa says, "Will Prince William accept if King Charles allows Harry the half in, half out model?" That's a big question. I don't know. I don't know. Sir Scola says Tom Sykes' family is old aristocracy, close to Lady C. He's very well connected. His bro has a job that gives him much of the real info. Yeah, I have. He's also based out of the UK. Rob Shooter is based out of the US. He's more in the Hollywood field, like worked with P Diddy and stuff. So I have much more belief in Tom Sykes reporting than Rob Shooter's. Mon P says, "What about the Italian aristocrats, the Medicis? Yeah, or the Sforzas in Milan, was it? And then you have it's going to come to me. Give me a second. The Borgias. The Borgias would be interesting, but they weren't actually they were more aristocracy rather than royalty. Yes, and this is so true. We can end on this, guys, since we are a little over time here. Says Lynn Gideon says histories were written by the victors, so nuanced info can be hard to find. That is true. History is 100%, guys, written by the victor, which is why you kind of want to be the victor in history because then you get to write it. But what's kind of interesting, at least when it comes to historical records, is that one of especially ancient times, that it was especially true. But the Bible's actually kind of interesting because they actually it's both like shows like the people of the Bible being victors and the defeated as well. It's rare to get records of sort of defeats. That's kind of, sometimes they're not even around to do it. So that's kind of the interesting thing about the Bible, actually, believe it or not. But yes, history is written by the victors. And sometimes too, guys, though, it's just simple availability of information, sometimes just in English. I'm sure there's a lot of Swedish history books in Sweden and Danish history books in Denmark, but they don't always get translated into English. And now, while the Google Translate and everything has been an immensely great resource, it's not, unfortunately, it's not so ubiquitous yet that you could like get any book from anywhere in the world and have it automatically be translated in Kindle, but that is on the wish list. That is on the wish list, I think, guys, because I would love to read so much more, especially from the people within the country who have that different perspective rather than an outsider's one. But we shall see, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this latest edition of Afternoon Tea. Go enjoy tea, maybe, or biscuits, wherever you are. And I shall speak to you guys again next week. Bye.